Please welcome back to the stage Reed Clay with Representative Cody Harris and Representative Drew Darby.
All right, well, it's my favorite little role reversal here. Usually I'm used to sitting in front of these guys and they get to ask me the questions. So we're gonna do a little role reversal here, but I gotta be kind because I'll probably be sitting in front of them again. So the first thing I wanna do is say thank you to both of you for y'all's leadership on our issue. And if you look out of this room, you know, we've gotten a lot of credit for the fact that this summit has grown by it's almost doubled between this year and last year. And the reality is the reason it's doubled, it doesn't really have a whole lot to do with the Texas Nuclear Alliance. It has to do with what leaders in the state of Texas decided to do and step up and pass HB 14 among some other things. And so I really just want to say thank you for y'all's leadership, and everybody ought to give you a big round of applause for that. So, and I think we'll talk about HB 14 in a minute, but I think I want to start with, you know, what personally is motivating the two of you guys to lean so heavily into nuclear and, you know, play a leadership role in passing HB 14?
Well, of course, Cody's bill's HB 14, but from my perspective, it's just, I've been at this job, quote unquote, high-paying job in the legislature for nearly 20 years. And over that 20 years, we've seen extraordinary growth in this state. And so our job as policymakers is to make sure that this state is equipped to handle that growth from an infrastructure. You have to have good roads, you have to have good water, you have to have good education system, you have to have good health care. You have to have all those things to live and work here in Texas, but you also have to have electricity. And we've seen times in the recent past where we didn't have enough electricity, and the calamity that brought about. So we are constantly struggling with how do we provide for the infrastructure needs of the state moving forward. And electricity and having enough electricity to meet and accommodate not only our personal uses, but our industrial and manufacturing use is critically important. And we've seen that the expectations of a growing state continue to increase the demands for reliable energy. When I first got in the legislature back in 2007, we were working on a project called CREZ, which was building for about $8 billion lines, electricity transmission lines to West Texas and to North Texas. And at the time, there were no power generation sources at the end of those lines. And I can remember remarking to a gentleman, Representative David Swinford out of Amarillo, and I said, well, David, they're gonna fry you and I if these generators don't come to the transmission lines that we were building. He said, Drew, if we build it, they will come. Well, that was a true statement then, and it's a true statement today. If we build it here in Texas, then industry will come provide for those needs. And so what's so exciting about nuclear, and you mentioned the growth of this room, clearly the enthusiasm, the excitement that each one of your organizations are bringing not only to this auditorium, but to the discussion about how you're going to play a role in providing for our electric needs here in this state. I'm a traditional oil and gas lawyer, been so for 50 years. I represent 10 counties out in the Permian Basin. I'm familiar with oil and gas. I'm familiar with water rights. I'm also been hugely supportive of an all of the above energy policy with renewables as well. And so I think we need it all. I'm a big tent type guy that think we need everything. Nuclear has a real exciting role in filling for the long-term needs of this state. And that's why I've enjoyed working with you and the Alliance, and certainly my colleague Cody Harris in our effort to try to bring some policy to bear, hopefully some financial resources to bear that will help this industry that has, quite frankly, languished in the doldrums for decades. It's wonderful to see the enthusiasm that the folks in this room are generating.
Chairman Harris?
Yeah, I totally agree with Drew. You know, we have to make sure that we have reliable electricity supply and water if we're going to continue to be the 8th largest economy in the world and hopefully move past that. If we're going to continue to have 1,600 people a day move to the state of Texas, then we need new sources of power and water. And so, you know, Drew is the chair of the Energy Resources Committee in the House. I'm the chair of Natural Resources, which is primarily water. And so that's really where I began to see the greatest benefit of introducing nuclear reactors to the state is on that waterfront. Because, you know, we Proposition 4 is going to be on the ballot here in next month, and that creates a $20 billion fund to go and primarily develop new sources of water. And to do that, seawater desalination, brackish groundwater desalination have to be a major part of that equation. Those both require a lot of electricity. And so nuclear, and not only electricity, but electricity that's not at risk of shutting off during weather or anything like that, reliable, dispatchable electricity, and an added benefit is that it's incredibly clean. So, you know, it just answers so many of the questions that we have to answer as legislators, but on top of that, it presents such an incredible opportunity to continue the Texas miracle and to make it even bigger. If Texas is the epicenter of this new nuclear renaissance, then why not jump in with both feet and us grab a hold of this and make Texas the incubator and the ground where everybody wants to be to develop this new technology?
So, you know, obviously Texas is the energy capital of certainly the U.S., and we like to say the world. And a big part of that has always been oil and gas, and, you know, for the foreseeable future, as long as there's oil and gas in the ground in this state, we're going to be an oil and gas state. And you've seen, really in the last decade, the impact that Texas itself and the Permian Basin specifically has had on our country's ability to provide energy security around the globe, both for the developing world, but even our allies in Europe, who, you know, the Russian invasion of Ukraine is probably the most stark example of this, but, you know, it was U.S. and Texas LNG exports that, you know, really came to save the day at that point. So I guess how much of that mentality of Texas being the energy capital of the world, and how much of a motivation is it to continue to be the provider of energy security around the world? Y'all just spoke a lot about the needs very specific to Texas. Is there any component of this that is, you know, Texas needs to step up and continue to develop its energy resources to continue to provide that national security, energy security around the world? You know, we use the word moral imperative during the legislative session. So how big a component is that?
You know, when Drew and I were in the earlier parts of session, you know, part of our job as legislators is to build momentum for a particular issue. And that was a huge component in building the momentum to pass House Bill 14, which Drew was a joint author on with me and helped tremendously. He had additional funds in the state budget for additional nuclear. That argument that somebody is going to be the leader in nuclear technology. Somebody's going to be the home base. Right now, it's China. They're the ones who are developing more small modular reactors, more nuclear reactors than anyone else. And in order to make sure that we are looking out for America's best interest, Texas needs to take the lead on this. And so, yeah, absolutely. That was a huge part of why we did what we did.
You know, one of the words you did not use in your description of the oil and gas industry is the word wildcatter. You know, we have a wildcatter mentality here in Texas. If there's a need, we tend to try to fill that need, and we take chances. I would submit that most of the folks in this room are risk takers. In one way or the other, we certainly all have some aversion to risk, but you want to limit that risk as much as you can. But in the end, we're all counting on building an industry that has laid dormant for decades. And so our charge together is to revitalize this effort, do things that will result in projects that have dirt moving and buildings going up and permitting process almost concluded or in the process of being concluded, because we've got to change this. We've got to take advantage of this momentum that we have and translate it to work that Cody and I can demonstrate to our colleagues that this is real. There's a lot of fluff out there, folks, and some may or may be a part of it or a smaller part of it, but there's a lot of enthusiasm in our communities about, wow, we're going to have a data plant in our community, or we're going to have this Bitcoin manufacturer, or we're going to have this distribution center for Walmart or whoever. A lot of that is being duplicated throughout the state, so there's a lot of hype. But the reality is that all can't take place. We all know that there's a lot of people trying to get into this space, and they're over-projecting their abilities and the progress that they've made. So we need to narrow that down. We need to focus on the projects that can actually turn dirt and build buildings and get permitted. And we need to take that actual proof into the next legislative session, because Cody and I, right now, with your help, are building a legislative agenda that we will try to accomplish in January of 2027. That's not that far away. We work on issues during the interim to allow us during our 140-day period that we have to enact legislation. We have to have a large part of that work done before we even show up and get sworn in. So my challenge to each one of you would be to help us develop that agenda based upon real-life projects that we can consolidate and focus support, not only the people in this room, but in the people that we listen to, our constituents. We can consolidate support behind real projects, and that would be my challenge to the group.
So this is a good segue, I think, to talk, specifically about House Bill 14 and both kind of how it materialized and then, what lays ahead for, what you guys established in that bill. We put a pretty bold initial price tag on this, on House Bill 14. We were seeking $2 billion. We got $350 million, which we're very grateful for. That's still a fantastic payment or investment in our industry. And I think, and I don't want to put words in either one of your mouths, but I think part of the mentality here is that this is an initial step, an initial down payment. And I guess, tell us how the conversations inside the building went in terms of $2 billion, but we're only going to invest $350 million.
Well, that's kind of Cody kind of marshal that. Cody and I both had worked on nuclear bills in the interim. And so Cody had a plan in his bill, and I had a plan in my bill. We filed bills, but neither one of those bills at that point was House Bill 14. Mm-hmm. Cody and I got into a room and we arm wrestled, and he's younger and stronger than I am, so he.
Sorry, I missed that meeting.
In all honesty, it was an effort by a chairman who I greatly respect, that we recognize that together we could move forward together in this process a lot stronger than we could separately, trying to take our own, buying into our own self-importance about our own plan of action. So we came together and we stayed together the whole time. And so Cody was primarily engaged in the money part. I did try. I think I had a bill that had to do with the money aspect of it, but the legislature they want to see action. We've created funds, but yet we have to have demonstrable progress on how those funds are being deployed to result in the policy objectives that we have. And so I think part of the challenge was that it's such a new industry, and we had to carve out a separate niche for it. Couldn't go under the energy fund. There was a lot of opposition putting it under the $5 billion we'd already separated for the energy fund, so we had to create our own fund.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You know, there's a lot of skepticism over whether you guys are ready or not. And keep in mind that we appropriate money for a 2-year period. This isn't 350 or a total of 425 million, right, Drew?
Yep.
Total all in, both House Bill 14 and what we did in the budget, $425 million is for 2 years. And so if you guys haven't shown that we were right and that you are ready and you've applied for that funding and it's been allocated, then we have effectively cut ourselves off at the knees when we go back next session. That's where the real reluctance came in. It's not that really anybody is against nuclear technology. It's, are we there yet? Are we at that point where it's time for the state to invest this amount of resources when we're debating property tax relief and water funding and all of these different things that are taking so much oxygen out of the room? Yes, I did want $2 billion for it, but I think still, knowing that we allocated $425 million towards advanced nuclear development in the state of Texas, it's the largest program anywhere in the nation. That is something that we have planted the flag on, and we're very proud of what we accomplished, largely with the help, and couldn't have done it without the Texas Nuclear Alliance.
So I think what I hear you saying is there were some, and you don't need to name names, although if you want to, you can, but there were some doubters, and the doubts weren't about whether or not the benefits of nuclear are good benefits and things that the state ought to enjoy if possible. Really, it was more about whether or not
it's about fiscal responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, across the aisle, Democrats, Republicans, almost everybody on the floor of the Texas House supports the concept of nuclear and appreciates the benefits that it will bring. But as you might also suspect, there's a cohort of members on the floor that they don't really care about some of those things. They care about the fiscal implications. Yeah. They just don't want to spend the money. And so in the end, we were faced with that dilemma, mainly in our own party, that they just opposed it on fiscal reasons. It's just too much money. They would rather buy down another Starbucks a year in property taxes as opposed to boosting an energy that will ultimately result in more jobs, more sales taxes, more infrastructure investment, more tax base, more help in property tax relief. They lose sight of that ultimate objective, and they're more concerned that, well, we could have given another $350 million in property tax compression, which is, it's not an insignificant amount, but we already committed $51 billion to property tax relief. And so I'd much rather invest in nuclear at 350 or 420 than I had continuing that.
So I hear kind of two related issues. One is are we putting money into projects that are going to happen? And then a related issue, but somewhat separate, is there a return on investment for the state of Texas?
Absolutely. That's a major concern for legislators. You know, our goal isn't to just put money out there and there be no long-term benefit back to the people of the state of Texas. And I think That's why this being the hub and the center of this nuclear renaissance is so attractive, is because if y'all are right, if we're right, and this actually does work, then we're talking about a massive return on what will become a relatively small investment based off of what the potential that there is there. Primarily the state of Texas gets its revenue from sales tax, franchise tax, and oil and gas severance tax. That's where we don't collect property tax. And so anytime that we're, as legislators, are looking at the economy and the future down the road, I've never operated in a legislature where there wasn't a budget surplus. Drew, I'm sure you have. And we don't want to be back in that position where we don't have a budget surplus in order to do all the things that we need to do as a state. And so if we're going to do that, then we have to invest in new industries and bringing in entire new sectors of our economy. And I think this is the perfect place to do that.
To your point, Cody, I was here at a time when we were leaving our homes and our districts to come down to Austin for the session. The comptroller had originally estimated a $5 billion deficit. By the time I got to Austin, it was $10 billion. And so, in a lot of respects, Reed, it's a whole lot easier to say no than it is yes. That was a fairly easy session, to tell you the truth, because almost anybody that came to us with their hand out, we just said no. Pretty easy. But the challenge, to Cody's point, is when you have a bountiful, robust economy generating revenue, how do we not only address the current needs of our constituents and Texans, how do we plan for the future? The decisions that Cody and I make and vote on every day, we will live under those laws, and certainly we recognize that, but those laws are primarily designed for my children and my grandchildren and their children. Texas will be here for hopefully a long time, and we're going to have challenges associated with that. So what kind of policies can we invest in today that will result in a better way of life for future Texans? And that's why the creation of the Energy Fund, that's why the creation of the Water Fund that people are going to vote on in November. That's why the investment in nuclear with what we're doing now. I think all works together to address those long-term infrastructure needs of the state. And so it's up to you guys and gals to demonstrate that what you're selling works. I mean, if you can demonstrate it works and you're making progress, then this guy and my job are going to be a heck of a lot easier, trying to convince our colleagues, let's put more money into this.
Yeah, we talked yesterday with former Comptroller Hager, new Chancellor of Texas A&M University System, and a large part of that. Whoop! There are no Aggies.
Hey, don't do that whooping stuff.
I'm glad you weren't here yesterday. They played the fight song. It was obnoxious. No, I'm just kidding.
It's called the war hymn, Reed.
What's that?
It's the war hymn, not the fight song.
Oh, the war hymn. Okay. There are some Aggies here. And we actually focused a fair amount on, his time as comptroller and the leadership of this state, which includes certainly him, certainly the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker, but also all of you guys who are in the room making decisions about how to spend the money. And we have been in an extremely enviable position as Chairman Harris just said, having massive budget surpluses the last few budgetary cycles, bigger than many states' whole entire budget. And I think it's easy for any industry to sell the importance of and the benefits of their industry, but the reality is, as you just said, there are a lot of different issues on the table, and you guys have spent on a lot of important issues, from property tax relief to public education to water to semiconductors to space. I mean, the list goes on. And part of that is, as you said, Chairman Darby, making Texas miracle go from what it has been for the last 20 to 30 years and persist, into the next generation.
Absolutely.
So, one of the things I think I hear you guys encouraging us to do as an industry is that it isn't just sell the benefits of nuclear. It is, we have to, in some ways, compete with all these other interests, and that requires a higher showing of a return on investment for the people who are making that investment.
I think so, yeah. And I think from my perspective and Drew's, I think 10 years from now, we don't want to still be allocating state resources to nuclear technology. I think our hope would be that we have gotten y'all over the initial barrier to entry and brought down the cost curve to the point where now you can thrive on your own and compete in the market on your own. That would be a win-win if we look back 10 years from now and we will have done that. This will have been a huge success. I can't remember that's where my mind went to answer your question, but.
One of the things that I think we tried to do, and I know that you guys believe it because you guys have been, huge champions for the industry and for the large investment that was made, is the potential economic development opportunities for the state of Texas. I think, you guys both represent fairly rural parts of the state. Could you guys talk about the benefits that you guys see from this investment in nuclear and two different parts of the state, right? Both for East Texas, and for West Texas.
Well, of course, I represent, like I indicated before, 10 counties out in West Texas. A lot of the Permian Basin. We have a lot of agribusiness and we have water needs. Our communities are in a perennial state of drought. Water is the key issue in our part of the world. We have a lot of oil and gas, but we have a lot of oil and gas traffic. We have a lot of oil and gas problems associated with it. One of the byproducts of oil and gas production is produced water. For every barrel of oil we produce another 5 barrels of produced waste. And so what do we do with it? Well, one of the struggles that I've had as chairman of House Energy is how do we formulate policies that encourage the industry to take advantage of a different use. It makes no sense to me to continue to throw that byproduct, that produced water, back down at deep depths under great pressure, creating issues of capacity and in my part of the world, seismicity. When you force that produced water back down in extreme depths at great pressures, then it doesn't create the faults. The faults are already there. That's why we have oil and gas accumulated in the Permian Basin. But what it does is it provides it lessens the friction, if you will. And so we're seeing when you have buildings tremor, we were involved in an energy resource meeting, I think in 2015, and it was interrupted when there was an earthquake, mind you, in Irving, Texas. And I will tell you, nothing will shake the foundation of this state more than having a disruption in the oil and gas industry. And if we have buildings shaking in cities, we're going to have problems. So the dilemma is, what are we going to be doing with produced water? This is where nuclear, in my opinion, is particularly well suited to be located in remote parts of the state, such as the Delaware Basin, far West Texas, where we have prolific production, but we also have prolific amounts of produced water. And so it makes sense to me to know that, to have the technology that is already in existence and being deployed, but the problem is it's highly energy intensive. You can treat the water, we know how to treat the water, but it just takes so much electricity. So this is where these small modular units, I think, would have particular adaptability in remote parts of the state to treat the produced water to a level of reuse that our communities can use it, or our agribusiness, or spray it on crops, or reintroduce it back into the rivers and streams. So all of that is exciting stuff. And if we do that, then one of the byproducts is we don't have to build as much transmission to get electricity to those remote parts if it's being generated there. And if we don't have to build transmission, then we don't have to trample upon the rights of property owners through eminent domain. We don't have to have ratepayers throughout the state pay for the socialized costs of transmission. And so these are tangible benefits that Chairman Harris and I can sell to our colleagues. If we'll invest in this technology, then this will result in tangible benefits that will allow us to reduce other costs to live here in Texas. And that's what's so exciting about nuclear.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's what's attractive in rural Texas is it provides us an opportunity where currently we're typically losing population to attract new industry and new jobs and keep the people there, because we have not only the new sources of power, but those themselves, the small modular reactors, would provide jobs to the local area and high-skilled labor, high-skilled jobs at the same time. So it's a net benefit not only to rural Texas, but the entire state altogether.
Cody's exactly right, and I didn't mention this, but workforce training. Mm-hmm. That's where I think the legislature, working with our higher education, and we've started some initiatives to create, we have an endowment for Texas State Technical Colleges that the voters are going to try to approve. Hopefully they'll approve it in November. But guys, if we don't develop a workforce that's capable of operating the equipment and what you're trying to put in, and we can demonstrate the safety of it with competent personnel, then it's not going to go anywhere. We have to bring not only the construction along, which is primarily your responsibility, but it's our responsibility to make sure we have a qualified and trained workforce that's able to service this equipment and to keep it safe and demonstrate safety to the people of Texas.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't talked a lot about oil and gas yet, and I like to think about just how much intersection there is between that legacy, and legacy implies it's gone, which of course it is not, but that very big industry in our state and the nuclear industry. And one of them, I really believe, we like to say that Texas needs nuclear, and we talked a lot about why, but nuclear needs Texas. And one of the things that I think Texas, one of the reasons we will be a winner, and one of the things that we will really help the industry with is the workforce issue. You know, we have a muscle of being able to train for highly technical jobs, for specific industry jobs, mostly because of oil and gas and the petrochemical complex down on the coast. And so, you know, that's I think one of the huge sort of benefits that we have. And of course, if we're not able to do that, you know, one of the primary return on investments for the investment that you guys are making are the jobs that it's going to create. And so following through on that workforce promise is a very big piece of this for sure. We have just a few minutes left. I think I know what you're going to say because we talked a lot about it, but you know, you guys through HB 14 have given the industry a lot of tools, and you've given them an initial investment to get going. What is, you know, the last parting advice that you would give us? And we have Jared Schaefer, who's recently been named the head of that nuclear office, will be with us later today. What advice do you give to him, to us, to, you know, take those tools and then hopefully turn it into something much bigger?
Say, prove us right. Go out there and apply for the funds. And start, just like Drew said, if we don't start turning dirt and building, now is the time to build. We did all of the precursory, is that what the theme is? Now is the time to build? Yeah, that's the truth. And so it's in y'all's hands now. There's nothing else that Drew and I can do until we get back to 2027 to help ignite y'all's industry. It's entirely on you, and you have our complete support and encouragement and enthusiasm as we hopefully sit here and watch you go thrive in the market that we've tried to help create here.
Yeah, I would just simply add to that part of the process that Cody and I deal with, and I spoke of it briefly before, was the interim study time that we're in right now. Between now and January of next year, we will conduct interim studies in the legislature. Each one of our 34 standing committees will have charges to look at and come up with policy issues. We not only check the legislation that we've done, and I'm sure, I'm happy to be on State Affairs, I'm sure we're going to look at HB 14 and look at how it's being implemented and that sort of thing. So there will be some interim hearings. I would certainly ask your industry to participate in that and bring us up to date progress being made. But also, if you've got other ideas you'd like the legislature to study, then make sure that we and others, our staff, know, and the Speaker's office, the Governor's office, is aware of those charges and can offer them for us to study. I know Jared's, congratulations to Jared for taking the job. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for Jared and the Alliance. I will offer that Jacqueline Hill, who's now with the Governor's office, she took Jared's spot. And Jacqueline started out great. She was my legislative director for a number of sessions. Then she went downhill to Senator Schwertner's office and ran that committee, and now she's continues, I'm saying it in jest, Governor, kind of continuing down the line to the Governor's office, or maybe some would say up the line. But anyway, Jacqueline is wonderful. I think she would be a resource I would offer. Stay connected with her and Jared. Talk about ideas, because to Cody's point, if we don't see progress, it's going to be hard for us to dampen the cries of people saying, see, we told you. That was a waste of money and effort. Let's put it on something else. And if I could caution all of you, each one of you have your own business that you'd like to take care of, but as much as you can come together and focus on the one or two doable projects that you can get behind and support and coalesce and work together, that would be helpful. That would be extremely helpful, because we really are going to need to see some progress, and you've got a great opportunity. Also, House Bill 14 and the money we got, it's a start, as Cody said, but there are other policy decisions that we didn't get done in the last session that we're going to need to work on. But again, this industry, although it's not a new industry, I think it's a rebirth of an industry here in this state, and we need to help raise this kiddo in the right fashion and get this kiddo working as soon as possible.
We have 90 seconds left. I told you guys I was going to ask this. We have an Aggie on stage and we have a Longhorn on stage. We have a big game the day after Thanksgiving. It's in Austin this year. It was an ugly game last year, I'm not going to lie, Chairman Harris.
It was an ugly game?
Well, for the Aggies.
Okay.
He's seething right now. Your predictions?
Unless the Longhorns and the Aggies take care of business between now and Thanksgiving, it'll have importance and meaning, but it won't have the significance if we can all take care of business and get to that game undefeated from this point forward. So they're great friends, great competitors. We have a healthy competition. Seems like there are a lot more Aggies on the floor of the Texas House. And I knew we'd get a whoop out of somebody. So
He's trying to run the clock out of
He
me,
is.
so I can't answer. Because the answer is the Aggies are going to beat the hell out of TU by 43-26.
There we go. Chairman Darby, Chairman Harris, we all thank you for your leadership, and frankly, your candid advice here today is extremely helpful to us, and thanks for being with us. Thank you very much.
thank you, Reed, for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. We may have to do a minute.